right, RevenueCat Quiz Show. I don't know if anyone gets this reference, but there's a movie called The Quiz Show, which is actually really, really good. And I did not plan this, I swear, but it turns out it was directed and produced by Robert Redford. So it's very timely. If you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It was nominated for a bunch of awards. And of course, thanks to the power of AI, we've got the RevenueCat Quiz Show here with a cat instead of a person. And yeah, you need to sign up to play. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to want to. There's a bunch of big prizes here that I'm going to get to on the next slide. But it's way more fun if everyone plays. And if you want to get a little overly competitive, I encourage that as well. These are the prizes. So the QR code there, you can continue to sign up. We're giving $300 to first place. And that's actual US dollars. That isn't a credit on RevenueCat.com. That is, it's a cold, hard, like Visa gift card, but it's going to be real money that you can spend. Second place, $150, and in third place, we're going to get $50. And a couple ground rules for how it's going to work. You're going to have 15 seconds to answer each question. After the question, we're going to see how everyone did. Usually the group does terribly. And then we talk about some insights that we can pull from that question. And we're going to move pretty fast. And the faster you answer, I should say, the tiebreaker is how fast you answer. So just getting questions right isn't going to be good enough. You need to answer quickly. So keep that in mind as the questions are kind of shown up on the screen. And while you're still signing up, a little bit about me. I head up our customer success team at RevenueCat. So I work with a lot of our customers implementing RevenueCat. But then once the implementation's done, the next question is, how do we grow? And so kind of get to see a lot of different types of apps. ChatGPT is a customer of ours. So is a Reuters over here. So we see a lot of different apps, a lot of different strategies and approaches to growing. And some of that's going to come into kind of the presentation today. And then I've also founded my own apps, both dead and alive. But I guess if I'm being honest, almost all of these are dead now. So learned a lot from those as well. There's a dog training app there. There's some early childhood education apps. So if you want to talk about any of those industries, you can come find me. And I'm happy to kind of talk about what went wrong there for me and my personal apps. And then last thing I'm going to mention, all the data you're going to see comes from the RevenueCat State of Subscription Apps report. We publish this every year. It's proprietary data. RevenueCat has over 75,000 subscription apps that use RevenueCat. So it's a lot of data. There's probably some biases in there, and we'll talk a little bit about that today too. But it's over $10 billion in tracked revenue. So it's a pretty broad spectrum of apps across the market that this data is coming from. And with that, hopefully everyone is ready. Any issues signing up? All right, cool. Let's play. What in the world? Oh, this is, I guess, who's joined the quiz. Thank you for using your real name, because I'm going to need to find you later to give you money. And if you do win, you'll come to the RevenueCat booth, and we'll settle up that way. All right, question 1. What percentage of trial starts happen on day 0? 51%, 62%, 74%, or 82%? All right, we've got an even mix here. Doesn't seem like the audience is too sure what the exact answer is, but the consensus was 82%. And that was right, 82%. So you can see here, it's pretty stark. I mean, this is extreme. 82% of trial starts happen on day 0, which I think is interesting, right? You would assume that most people are going to try out an app for a little bit, then decide to start a trial. I think what this is really reflective of is the idea that most apps these days have a hard paywall. They're really pushing you to, if you want to see what's inside, you have to start that trial. And I think a lot of the users have adapted to that. If I was to take anything away from this, and this will be a theme for my entire talk, nothing here is sort of absolute. But I'm going to kind of encourage everyone who's like seeing this data to ask yourself, could we be different? Is there money to be made by shifting this day 0 to day 31 or day 100? Kind of skating to where there is no competition already. I would love to see this number change a little bit and see some more people kind of adopt a freemium strategy. Next question, get ready. Which free trial lengths yield the best conversion to paid? 3 days, 1 week, 2 weeks, or 1 month? And we're going to see the answer here. All right, well, most people here think 1 week. That seems like a pretty good guess. Let's see what the right answer is. It's actually 1 month. So when we're talking about trial starts, I mean, in some ways, this kind of makes sense. You know, the longer trial you give someone, maybe the more time they have to actually be convinced this is an app they want to have. And so we see longer trials operate better. But we actually see shorter trials being more popular with developers. And I think the simple explanation there is people want to get their money back faster. So they're trying to get that trial start quicker, to get money back, to reinvest that into ad spend. But the truth is, the longer you can kind of nurture users and get them to kind of try out your app, the better conversion you're going to have. But you can see here, there's not like a huge difference. I mean, maybe that less than 4 days is a little bit smaller. But when you're looking at 5 to 32 days, which you're seeing up here on the chart, they're kind of the same. So you could really play with that. But in general, longer is better. All right, next question. What percentage of apps use hybrid monetization? So this is, beyond just subscriptions, but maybe subscriptions and ads and one-time purchases. Is it 22%, 35%, 54%, or 61%? Audience says 54%, otherwise pretty mixed results. The answer is actually 35%. So 35%, that's obviously way less than half. The graphs up here are broken down by category. So the gaming industry, which is the third one from the left that you're looking at, has obviously been doing hybrid monetization for a long time. But we are starting to see it more in the app subscription space. And we had Google on a podcast recently that we did. Our podcast is called The Sub Club, but it's a RevenueCat podcast. And they talked about the apps that they see succeeding in the Google ecosystem are doing more hybrid monetization strategies. And I think that just really speaks to the different audience that an Android user kind of appeals to than maybe iOS. And we've got some other data on here. So maybe tuck this away. There's some other data on here that kind of relates to that difference as well. But I think there's a big opportunity into doing more hybrid monetization, reaching new markets, both on different platforms, but also different geographic locations and just different users who have a different willingness to buy. Let's get ready for the next one. All right, question 4. Which development framework has the highest day 60 revenue per install? Other, so Unity, Native, React Native, or Flutter? And I don't think we have a lot of engineers here, maybe. I'm not trying to start any wars about platforms or frameworks. All right, seems people assume it's either Native or React Native for the most part. This one surprised me. The answer is actually React Native. And I would say one reason it surprised me was because RevenueCat has always felt very heavily, popular with like the native app crowd. But React Native obviously is doing well for a lot of customers at RevenueCat. And I think the takeaway here isn't that one of these is better than the other. I think the takeaway is it doesn't matter what framework you're using. You can make money on any of them. And you can see here, React Native isn't doing that much better than other, which included Unity, which if I hear complaints about any framework, it's often Unity. But there's money to be made there just as there is on Flutter and native apps. So something to keep in mind if you're kind of in the position of making that decision right now. Next question. There's 9 questions, by the way. I think we're on number 5. What percentage of annual subscribers turn off auto-renew in the first month? 12%, 19%, 27%, or 53%? Uh, 53% is most people's guess, but it's kind of mixed, more on the higher side. Right answer is 27%. So another one that kind of surprised me, typically when I think about some other subscriptions, I wait until there's, send me a notification that, hey, we're going to charge you again. I'm like, yeah, don't want that, turn that off. But what we're really seeing is, especially in the app ecosystem, we've all been trained to, as soon as I've committed to spending money, with a trial start or starting a subscription, I'm going to go turn that off, even if I like the app, just because I don't want to be caught surprised by a charge a year from now if it's an annual subscription or next month. And that's what we're seeing in the app ecosystem as well. And this is across all categories. I mean, you can see here that shopping acts a little bit differently than the other ones with that big spike. But most people are turning cancellations off after 1 month. And this isn't news to anybody, but I think this just reiterates the fact that retention begins on day 1. Basically people have said, hey, I'm canceling unless you prove otherwise. And you kind of have to adapt to that mindset, especially in the app ecosystem. I think we're going to see that change a little bit, especially with the new rules around iOS and more people kind of exploring an app to web flow and having users check out on the web. It's a little bit harder to cancel there, even if you try to make it easy. And I think we're going to see these numbers be very different with our next report. Next question. Which price point retained the most annual subscribers after 1 year? Low price, mid price, or high price? If you want to increase retention, which of these should you price in? Audience says mid price, good middle of the road answer. High price is also up there. I think you're going to be surprised then because the answer is low price, which again just seems like one of those obvious things. Like if you charge less money, people are more likely to stick around. But I think with a lot of the advice we hear kind of being given, in our industry right now, it's always charge more. You're not charging enough. You could be making more money if you charge more, and that's probably true. I mean, LTV seems to be growing the more you charge, and I still tell a lot of my customers to charge more. But if retention is a more important metric to you, you might want to think about just offering that low price because users are going to stick around longer. And it's kind of a stark difference here compared to the high price. Especially on the annual subscriptions, you can see the cheaper the annual subscription is, the more likely people are to stick around. And you kind of combine that idea with the hybrid monetization thing. It's like maybe I'll make a little bit of money off a subscription, but then I'll have these other channels to make more money off this user to increase that lifetime value. Question 7, which platform has the highest year 1 LTV per paying user in the health and fitness category? Android or iOS? In health and fitness, what has a higher year 1 LTV? Most people guess iOS. This was a very unintuitive one as well. It's actually Android. I mean, and you weren't too far off guessing iOS. They look pretty close there. And I think if you look across all these categories, App Store's in red, Google Play's in purple, blue, whatever you want to call it, they all act pretty similar. Again, this could be a little bit of the bias of the RevenueCat data. But what I actually think this means is the types of apps that have subscriptions and that are on iOS and Android are doing a little bit of a copy and paste strategy. Whatever they're doing on iOS, they're doing it on Android. And I think if you break down these numbers a little bit, what you're going to find are the users that are subscribing here on Android are the users who have the premium Android phones, right? The ones that you would kind of put in the same category as an iPhone, your Pixels, your high-end Samsungs. And so they're really kind of the same audience, just with a slightly different platform. And I think there's opportunity here. Like these graphs shouldn't look the same. Google should be behaving very differently with what we know about the long tail of their audience. So I think this is just like an invitation to think more about your Android strategy, combine some of those hybrid monetization ideas, or maybe just different messaging altogether to try to pull out some more of that value from those users. The LTV should be different, but you could still potentially make as much money in aggregate because of the higher number of users in the Android ecosystem. All right, getting close to the end here, so maybe some people need to make up some ground. Question number 8. What was the top reason for churn according to Android survey results? I found a better app, I didn't use it enough, technical issues, other, or cost related. So when you cancel on Android, they ask you why you're canceling, and this is what users answered. The audience thinks it's not enough usage, and the audience would be correct. So I think this would be surprising to some people, at least given how much attention is paid to making sure an app is bug-free. You can see here the reason technical issues is a very small portion of this. It says 7.1% compared to 37.2% for not enough usage. I hesitate to draw too many strong conclusions here. I think one thing you could say is maybe people spend way too much time over optimizing the technical ability of their app, and they should spend more of that time focusing on why users aren't using their app. But I think you could also draw the conclusion that everyone knows that the technical sort of soundness of your app is so important that we're going to spend a lot of time there so that we don't get scorched in the reviews and have that drag down our app search ranking. I'm not sure, but we do know that when it comes to the end of the time and they're canceling, they're saying, hey, I'm just not using this enough. And I think another close one here is cost related. To me, that's kind of the same answer, just in a different way. Like, if it was a perfect app that did everything they wanted to do, there would be no cost that's too high. So again, technical issues doesn't seem to be a big reason why people end up canceling. Finally, last question. This one's a little boring because it's kind of a gimme. Who publishes the State of Subscription Apps report? RevenueCat, Apple, or Google? Not trying to trick anyone. Just trying to throw an easy one in here. Everyone get one right. But we still got to wait for the timer to run out to see what the answer is. Oh, we still got one Google. There, we got a jester in the audience somewhere. It's the class clown. It's RevenueCat. We publish it every year. It gets bigger every year. Hopefully we'll rein it in this year. It was 250 pages this year. And I'll put a link to that at the end if you really want to dig through that. But yeah, it's RevenueCat. And here are our winners. So if you are in the top 5 here, I would say stop by the RevenueCat booth. We'll take all of your information in case somebody from 1 through 3 doesn't show up. That card's going to go down to the next user. So yeah, thanks everyone for playing. I really appreciate it. 6 out of 9. These were tough questions. So thank you.